Thank you for joining me today. I am going to be discussing my proposed solution for The Secret: A Treasure Hunt, San Francisco. I believe that it is a love letter to Jessie Benton Fremont from Byron Preiss. She is a perfect match for image 1. As you can see, her hair is parted in the middle and rounded. The facial features also match. Her ruffed collar with a brooch, i.e. a pearl, with rounded shoulders and puffy sleeves, and the positioning of her hand holding a book or a Bible of some sort with her fingers tucked underneath. And you may be asking where Jessie Benton Fremont lived. Well, my proposal takes us to Fort Mason. In fact, Byron specifically calls out the National Park Service in his book, in the chapter, The Woolly Bully. These are some of the image matches that most people are aware of, with some they may not be aware of sprinkled in. I will only go through some quick ones. First of all, I believe the image is meant to represent a medium or psychic of sorts. Also, she kind of looks like a tarot card reader, some kind of gypsy type of tarot card reader. I'm not sure, but let's move on. I believe her hairline is meant to represent a hummingbird, as Jessie Benton Fremont was a renowned gardener with beautiful gardens and such. Here's an illustration of a hummingbird to show how it fits into her hairline. The dragon is supposed to be facing the far east, and therefore image 1 is a mirror image. The face in the rock that people have speculated to be Lincoln is actually Ronald Reagan. Her arms and the two rows of stones, cobblestones, is meant to represent a rebus for crossroads. The rose is in the shape of Angel Island. We have now arrived at the most important part of the entire puzzle. I call it the cipher, where we need to take multiple clues and combine them in order to decipher the puzzle. For me, I'm going with the psychic theme, so I used psychic cards in order to connect the 5 different steps involved in this destination puzzle. The first clue I call square 1. It literally involves the square of the psychic cards, and it's at Stonewall's door that the air smells sweet and matches the chapter The Pentagorgon. The Circle of Friends is not far away, High Post R3, Education and Justice for All to See, matches the book's chapter, The Left Wing Simp and the Right Wing Trog. The ships passing by, in fact, are sounds from the sky near Aces High, running north but first across. This clue represents 2 different individuals, the West Coast and Phantasmagory. We move on to a crossroads that involves a chapter of The Woolly Bully. Lastly, we have the Star-Spangled Banner, which ties into the Giant Pole, Giant Step, and the chapter, The Giant, as you will see. In order to better visualize the different steps involved in the puzzle, one must walk the actual Fort Mason history walk. As you can see, you begin at square 1, which is McDowell Hall, the general's residence. From there, you move on to the Circle of Friends, the Haskell House, the Fremont House, the intersection of Funston and Franklin, and the median island where the casket is kept. The first step is, again, McDowell Hall, general's residence. I am not 100% sure how Byron Preiss made the connection to Stonewall's door, as there are no actual stone walls there, other than the connection to the fact that General Irvin McDowell is best known for his epic defeat against General Thomas Stonewall Jackson during the Civil War. So this is memorialized on these wooden posts that they placed there in 1939. As you can see on the right, there's one that's a different type of sign that was there, and I'm guessing perhaps that referenced Stonewall Jackson directly. Either way, that's where we begin. The next step is the Haskell House, where the wooden 3 high posts are on the wood sign, and in fact are a major, a senator, and a justice. This matches the book, as the senator was a left-winger, liberal, and the justice was a right-winger, a conservative. And their differences were over the issue of slavery. The next clue brings us to the Fremont home, and Jessie Benton Fremont is the ace, as she was an intellectual. Her husband was successful, but mainly due in part to her genius. She was the brains behind the operation, so to speak, and are actually compared to this day to Bill and Hillary Clinton. From their home, you get a spectacular view of all of the images shown in image 1. I'm sorry, all of the locations shown in image 1. You get Alcatraz, Ghirardelli Square, Angel Island, the Golden Gate Bridge that is running north first to cross. We move on to the intersection where road has been dedicated to Frederick Funston. He was a giant of American military history, but only stood 5 feet tall. He was demonized by Mark Twain in a scathing letter he wrote attacking his belligerent warmongering ways. The letter or article, I believe, was called "In Defense of General Funston," as you see in the notes. However, he was given this road in his name to honor him for his help with the San Francisco population during the earthquakes, or the earthquake of 1906. He rescued the city by organizing recovery efforts, whatnot. The next step takes us to the giant pole, giant step. As you can see here, there once was, and indeed, a giant pole, flagpole with a mound around it that was the main street of its time. Here is a close-up of that flagpole. Again, this is on a wayside, an exhibit kiosk thing that you spot when you walk through the fort. It's also referenced directly in the book, as you can see here, when Old Glory unfurls in the wind, the band plays Sousa, I don't know how to say that, and the actual wayside itself says there, the raising and lowering of the flag, sometimes on formal occasions, made the post band perform. Aha moments, as everybody looks for these. As I mentioned, all of the various clues and steps in the puzzle are mentioned directly, almost by name, in the book. And I'm not going to belabor the reading of these clues. You can freeze the presentation to read them at your leisure. But I can quickly go over them. The Pentagon clearly is discussing Irvin McDowell. Part of his failure against Stonewall Jackson was the fact that he had very little field experience. He was more of an administrative general. The left wing and the right wing trog, it's self-explanatory. As we just discussed, the liberal and the conservative that shot each other in a duel. The West Coast is obviously John Charles Fremont, as his wife is the one that almost got him elected to the presidency, as referenced in the book. Phantasmagoria chapter, he says there that their best work urging folks to give everything they've got for a shot at the vice presidential nomination. In fact, her husband was the first presidential nomination of the then new Republican Party. The Woolly Bully is a direct reference to Funston, as I've already mentioned. He was a belligerent bully in war times. And I just skipped a chapter or a step there about the giant pole, but we'll get to it anyhow. Aha moment regarding the face in the rock. I am able to confirm it is Ronald Reagan. As you can see, He was once stationed at Fort Mason and was also a former governor, much like Richard Barnes Mason, who Fort Mason is named after. In fact, there is a memorial plaque with his name in the rock, in a rock. The next aha moment is the actual location of where the casque is buried, the median island that matches perfectly with the dragon's nose that protrudes from the painting, as most people have noticed. It is odd that it sticks out of the border for the Golden Gate Park image. The next aha moment is the actual photo of Jesse Benton Fremont looking out towards Angel Island and Alcatraz, much like the face in the rock for image 1. There's another kiosk that has this photo and describes how she had roses and geraniums and loved to sit on her porch and look out for the ships going by, as the sounds from the sky were so strong, and she found a lot of pleasure in that. And the rose is the match for Angel Island, as you can see here. The couple's photo is of Jessie Benton Fremont and her husband that perfectly match the hands in image 1. As you can see here, the image 1's left hand matches Jessie's left hand, and the image 1 right hand matches John's right hand. Although his index finger is, or pointing finger, is tucked, his thumb is hidden, just like image 1. And lastly, and loosely, I was able to find a bit of a reachy, stretchy connection to the Chinese immigration theme, in that refugee camps were set up at Fort Mason to handle the homeless people after the earthquake of 1906, and Funston, as I mentioned already, was in charge of that effort and segregated them to the degree that he received a telegram from the higher-ups, and I believe it was again Teddy Roosevelt, as mentioned in the book, that ordered he stop his shenanigans and be more humane towards the Chinese immigrants.